This one comes from someone called Shane. I'm hoping it's not the cowboy. Shane. You know him?
Yeah.
Dear Frankie, Susie, and Christopher, and Bruce. What was Shane's thing? He was like a new cowboy, and there was a young boy who didn't have a dad and a woman who lived on a ranch, and he was kind of helping out, but there was a conflict. Okay. Shout out to Shane. Dear Frankie, Susan, Christopher, and Bruce Randy, I have loved your podcast since day one and eagerly listen every week. Truly a one-of-a-kind podcast. Anyway, I think that's sufficient smoke blowing, so I'll get into my question. Do you know there was smoke blowing in the film Shane? Because that's how Native American people communicate, stereotypically. I am an Irishman doing my master's in literary studies in the Netherlands. Against my better judgment, I'm currently doing a thesis on post-apocalyptic satires and neoliberalism. I'm using Shanky's... I was going to say Shanky's fort history. Frankie's short history, not Shanky. Frankie's short history is one of my primary texts, along with Zone 1 by Colson Whitehead and Galapagos by Kurt Vonnegut. I have scoured the internet for interviews with Frankie discussing neoliberalism and satire to find quotes relevant to my argument. Because I'm still writing it, I can't discuss much, but I figure a mailbag question to the gang would be the best help. So with all that being said, I would like to know, and this is for all of you, as I know Christopher likes Vonnegut and Susie is politically sane, satire can be seen as both protest and resignation. How do you reconcile this? Can satirical resignation function as a form of resistance, or does it ultimately reinforce the very capitalist inertia it critiques? And what does the apocalypse say about our current moment's relationship to crisis and depressive hedonia, the inability to imagine beyond the current system? Has the plight of the satirist become more acute, or is it necessary? Of course, you can answer all of these, none of these, or just talk about soup. But if you'd like me to incorporate your answers in my thesis, then please respond before mid-August. Free Palestine, up the rat, and all my love, Shane.
I wrote this column one time called Consider the Plight of the Satirist, if he wants to Google that, and might be of some use to him.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of feel differently about satire. Like, I sort of think it's like one of the problems with it is that it tends to, well, so satire historically or academically is thought of as three different things usually, which is juvenalian, which is like a sort of bombastic, angrier, more accusatory, not angry, but like more direct kind of satire. There's Horatian satire, which is a kind of indirect, what we would think of as Wildian, kind of slightly more tangential and refined. And there's Menippean satire, which is like it's supposed to be about kind of classes of people and social structures to some extent. So something like Black Mirror could be seen as a Menippean satire, or even I would argue Stathlet's Flats or something like that
is the housing crisis.
Is a Menippean satire. Right. Anyway, those categories aren't particularly useful, but I think the principal problem from the inside, just from doing it, is that it tends to cause you to lean towards describing individual failings as if they were moral failings.
Right.
So you see a lot of this when people do their own satire all the time. The tweets and their dunks on Donald Trump or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, you're attributing the failure of the American political system to the election of a guy who is unworthy of the office. Right? So his individual moral failings are the reason that things are going wrong. And, really it's systemic problems. And satire tends not to address that. And it's we used to do a wee bit of a New World Order. We would talk about, so you need a revolution and all that kind of stuff. But it's hard to go into critiques of systems within something as direct as, like, spoken word comedy, for example. What you get on the left a lot is people say, and this has been the standard opinion for maybe 15 years now, people go, satire, it's unhelpful because it breeds a kind of cynicism. It breeds a kind of they're all the same thing to politicians. I would argue a very large part of the problem of the British population, certainly over the last 15 years, has been insufficient cynicism. You know, Boris Johnson was elected because people lacked the cynicism to see what was likely to happen there. Keir Starmer was elected to the leadership of the Labour Party because party members and MPs were insufficiently cynical. You know,
that he would be an absolute useless cunt. Yeah.
And I don't really buy that argument. There's that. So that idea on the left really is that, you know, the people we like should be celebrated. Part of the thing with Corbyn was, you know, people, why didn't you cheer harder? Why didn't you love him more? You're like, that's really not the job of satire. No. And if you go back and you look at any satirists of any note of the last 50 years, they don't do that. George Carlin says, look, it's all a carnival. I'm outside of it. I don't vote. I watch the fucking parade and I criticise it. And that's my role, you know. And that's a much more useful role. And in fact, if, you know, people had criticised Corbyn a bit more and joked about him more, it would have been better. There's also that thing where, like, people need to learn to take a joke, or at least pretend to take a joke, because British culture runs on that. You cannot be seen to be thin-skinned. You know, it's extremely unattractive quality in this culture. At
any level of society.
Yeah. So,
in the pub or in the House of Commons, it doesn't matter if you can't really take a joke without going,
you've got to take a fucking joke. I mean, and actually, you've really kind of got to learn to take it genuinely if you want to be happy.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's the principal thing with satire is it's become this thing where people use it to describe wider desires that they have for society. So they go, oh, it should always be punching up. There's a very good article about this, about why it shouldn't always be punching up. This guy sort of makes the point that, you know, we start out in satire with Cervantes, with Don Quixote, and he's going, that also satirises just being an old man. That's punching down, right? It satirises
being a daft old guy who leans at windmills,
reading books and being interested in literature. You know, it's going. Satire isn't there to punch up or down. It's to punch anything that needs punching. I mean, it's not as dramatic as punching. And that word, I'm always like really uncomfortable when people in comedy tend to use these very masculine terms about storming things, killing shows, crushing it, you know, punching up, and you're like, you're the least punchy. You're the people least capable of punching anything.
It's always
in the world.
Folk with pipe cleaners for arms. You crush the gig.
Yeah. I am.
If you ever if you ever see like a comedian who actually is capable of doing damage, they're always like, "Yeah, I had a lovely time." Yeah. That's how I like to think about it. Yeah, I had a good time up there. It was nice. I'm trying not to use words like that because it is utterly unhelpful as well, and I guess it's people who don't have a lot of physicality in their life. Do you know what I mean? And they just try to have that access to that language and stuff.
There are also people who are bullied at school and are still, you know, still kind of ringing from that experience. Yeah. I'm the only person I've ever known who thinks this, right? So apologies in advance. But I think punching up and punching down is completely stupid. And that if you take an example like, say there's a group of people who are opposing a new Sainsbury's being built on their local park or something like that, right? By the laws of punching up and punching down, if you wrote something about that, it should be satirising the people at Sainsbury's who are taking over this local facility, right? Sainsbury's will have a corporate structure that is reflective, right? They'll have 360 evaluations. They'll have internal reports on how a land purchase went, all that kind of stuff. And they will store that information institutions are capable of learning. They might do it in a slow and haphazard way, but when money is involved, they're capable of learning. Protests famously, and resistance groups famously spring up and learn the lessons of the last protest. That's a common theme, right? Is that people who come together to resist the Iraq war look back and go, oh fuck, this is what people were doing in Vietnam, but it's taken us a year to work it out.
Right.
Yeah. So if you were writing something satirical about Sainsbury's purchasing that local park, you would be just as valid to satirise the protest group.
So as the next people could do better.
So that you're making some record and some observations and some critique that might be useful to the future, you know?
Yeah.
And the whole sort of simplistic, there's a real thing in British culture of people say things because they sound good. Punching out, I wouldn't want to punch down, I prefer to punch out. Just it's snappy, it's, you know, and people need to stop saying things because they sound good and actually think about what they're saying. When we talk about being internet poisoned, that's one of the ways in which we've been poisoned. We've been poisoned into believing that rhetoric is real. Rhetoric comes from ancient Greeks, right? It's a set of rules that you can use to persuade people. But when you're using rhetoric to persuade people, you need to remember that these are tools. This is an abstraction that you are using in an attempt to achieve your political ends. It's not real. Punching up and punching down isn't real.
I feel really bad for Shane because there's no way he's going to hear this before mid-August.
Yeah, it's a pity.
It'd be great.
But there you go. You know, that's the fucking dystopia.
That's the plight of the satirist, brother. Yeah.
That's the plight of the satirist, my friend. I don't understand why he means neoliberalism within dystopia.
I think because it's the issues with
Neoliberalism has caused dystopia.
I think it tends to be. It's usually big businesses destroying the world and things, isn't it?
I guess corporatism and all that kind of stuff. And then Yanis Varoufakis, who I'm interviewing 1st of October in Edinburgh, which I'm sure will sell out. He's a very popular dude. So by the time you hear this, probably sold out.
I've learned how to say his job. He's an economist.
He is indeed an economist. But his last book before this one was about techno-feudalism. So he says, we've passed capitalism. We are now past capitalism. We're in a different stage that he calls techno-feudalism or sometimes cloud capitalism.
Or techno-serfs.
Yeah, we're techno-serfs.
Yeah, that's how it feels anyway. Toiling in the fields for the daimyo.
I'm just collecting this stuff for the algorithm.
Is that your impression of a feudal Japanese person?
I don't know who I was being really. But I was collecting stuff for the algorithm.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you think about it, like punching up, punching down, and I think about you had a really. It wasn't one of your most well-known jokes, but you had a bit in your last show before last show where you were talking about bin men being really loud, and it's like I guess some people would say you shouldn't make jokes about bin men. Those are working class people. And it's like they are really loud though, you know, and you're there just to kind of notice things that are incongruous. That's your job.
Yes.
So it's worthwhile pointing out that how loud bin men are.
It's really...
It's a real disruption in my life. I get woken up every bin day by my wee buzzer goes, and then I have to go, okay, I'll let them through. I want to sleep on it day.
It's sad that the market has dropped out of scolding for the reasons that it has, right? That we're all fucking doomed and heading towards some kind of like camp-based reality. But the market has kind of dropped out of scolding.
Yeah,
and
that doesn't exist anymore.
And that is a good
You can't
thing,
scold somebody when you're hanging out on a Nazi's website.
Yeah.
The morality of like, I'm on Twitter and I'm here to say that you are doing things wrong. Well, you're on Twitter, so you have no fucking...
Yeah.
You've got no base with which, whereas it used to be, well, this is just where everybody hangs out. Well, now it's like, a lot of people don't hang out there. And nobody's on Blue Sky, and nobody's on Threads. So the idea that you could scold somebody from there, the algorithm won't show you any scolding on Instagram, because if there's any inflammatory language, you get absolutely depushed by the algorithm. Facebook is a car boot sale.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to scold people other than newspapers, but they're very much who deserve to be scolded just now with their coverage of things. So where are you going to scold from?
your scolding platforms have gone.
Here
but
comes the
also-
guillotine, the new Scold cast.
Yeah. But that didn't get anywhere. And like at the time where you were sort of going, like trying to police people for saying freak or something is just not a good use of anyone's time in this reality.
Yeah.
You know, there might be a kind of, you know, a wonderful fucking Big Rock Candy Mountain world where it might be worth fine tuning some of these things. But for the moment, the fact that Lily Allen had more white dancers than black dancers on her tour or whatever the fuck is just not worth the fucking ink.
I'm
And
afraid not.
people didn't listen to that because they were getting attention.
Yeah.
And they were getting attention for the first time in their lives, you know, because they're not performers and they're not, you know, and they're just kind of like, oh, great, right, fuck, another 2,000 likes for saying don't say freak.
And you know
Okay.
what? It's an absolutely wonderful word to use.
And those people were freaks. I mean,
Yeah.
they were the biggest fucking freaks going. You couldn't tell them. It was a freaky thing to do.
The whole website was a freak show.
Full of freaks.
Yeah.
That you were
The bearded
telling.
woman, the spider boy, the mermaid who's got some wrong with her. The elephant. He was, well, I've seen where he was from today. Was it Yorkshire, the Elephant Man? He was English, wasn't he?
He was English, yeah. I
Can't
can't
remember
remember
where.
from.
I was on the Wikipedia for the Elephant Man this morning.
So it looks like he was from Yorkshire. Oh no, he was from Leicester.
It's from that's right, he was from Leicester, yeah. Yep. Oh. Well, there you go. I hope that you're. I don't think Galapagos is one of Vonnegut's best books, if you're lost. But okay, fair enough. Not gonna scold Vonnegut, but it was a late career move there.
Often towards the end, they should just stop, shouldn't they? There's a final like Umberto Eco book that's just like, how the fuck did this get published?
Well,
It's
that's
just
it. You become accustomed to a certain way of living. You're happy. You know. Having watched the Kurt Vonnegut, listen, he's one of my favourite people in the world, but having watched the documentary about his life story, he left his wife who loved him for a younger person and then was like not happy. And then he just had to pay loads of divorce things and you got to keep pumping them out and you've not got the ideals. And tale as old as time, like a Jim Henson, you know.
Did you ever read Lynn Barber's interviews?
Who's that?
Lynn Barber is this woman who used to write interviews for maybe the Times or something like that, right? But it's really worth reading. She's really talented. She really didn't give a fuck.
Cool.
Like in the way a sort of posh English person doesn't. So the sort of civility was gone from it completely.
Mm.
Sometimes it's horrible because you're just reading it going, oh fuck, you're absolutely just shooing this person who, you know, turned up late for fucking lunch or something. And sometimes it's really interesting because she's like, she does a couple of quite good interviews with Goldie, who I really love Goldie,
Oh yeah, of
right?
course. Yeah.
And she's like, oh, it's so much more interesting when he doesn't get on to explaining everything by the fact that he was in care, you know. And she's just, and he's sort of going, well, you know, and she's like, well, girl, let's get past that. What if we got past the first
That's crazy.
story?
That's crazy.
But it's interesting because I think Lena Dunham's Girls is a bit like that as well. A lot of it's kind of about autism, right? And the characters are autistic. So she's, to me, autistic. And
Adam Driver's
Adam is
character is
clearly autistic.
It's an autistic love story.
But it's like if you introduce civility into those plots, they wouldn't work because, like, you know, you tell Marnie exactly what you think of her over dinner. You wouldn't see her for like 3 months. You've just absolutely destroyed her fucking self-image.
It
you
does
know?
feel like in that programme sometimes that they don't speak to each other for ages.
Well, yeah, they sort of have a time-lapse thing
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. But, you know, it's like, what would life be like if you took away that film of civility? And there's, you know, there's something interesting about that. But she's good in that sense, Lynn Barber, and that she doesn't buy anyone's opening gambit.
Right.
And she does one with Joseph Heller. And I love Joseph Heller. Wrote Catch-22. Wrote Something Happened, which I really love his second book. But it's just such a fascinating thing.
What did she
So
say?
she's not an uncomplicated character, right? She's not entirely punching up or down.
Right.
And it, you know, she tends to have more social status than her interviewees in a way because she's quite a posh English person. But anyway, she turns up to interview Heller, and he's supposed to meet her at maybe the train station or the airport or whatever. And she says, pretty sure I see him driving by just as it starts to rain. And he drives by and kind of leaves her there. And she's kind of like, well, I don't know, but I think he just deliberately drove by. That's me. And he picks her up and she's like soaked and stuff. And he takes her to his house. And he's got this new wife, maybe, or maybe it's his old wife, I don't know. But she sort of says to him at one point, oh, you did all this shagging. Like you used your literary celebrity to be a kind of mad shagger and you were married and stuff. And he's like, yeah, I did, you know, I mean, and I loved that. And she's like, would you change it? Like if you could, because obviously now that the fire of it has died down, would you? And he's like, no, I wouldn't change it at all. You know, and it's kind of fascinating. And they obviously don't get on and all that stuff. But all that stuff that we think of what's required for something interesting to happen, for civility to be present, and for, you know, critique to happen and all that kind of stuff, it sort of isn't necessary. It can just be this kind of spark that creates something.
I used to interview musicians when I was a teenager, and you get much better interviews if you play them a wee bit, and if you just ask really brutal questions and then just go, they'll say something. You know, if you say, I'm ashamed. The issue is you can ask a really interesting question and get a really good response, but then you can't live with yourself for the rest of your life as that person who upset that person. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think if you're a sociopath or a psychopath, then that's really handy for being successful in business and for interviewing Goldie.
Yeah, I don't think she was at all a sociopath. I think she was interested in people and did care about people, but was also just a very complex person herself. And now we have this thing of people arriving at the altar of celebrity and going, oh my God, I met Kate Moss and she told me the 3 stories she always tells. Yeah. And this was someone turning up going, well, I wasn't fucking dealing with, who are you? And okay, and why did you do that?
More complicated. Can you get away with it if you're not independently wealthy through generational wealth?
That's a good question. Or would you try it? Do you know what I mean? Would you ever try it if you didn't have some kind of sense of security? Yeah.
It's like people who do really, not naming any names, but very confrontational stand-up that really pushes buttons. And it's like, yeah, but your mum's famous and your dad's famous. And you're fine. You've got money sitting there. And if you bomb the entire Fringe every night, it's fine. You know, you're not going to be worried. And then, you know, it's hard. I find it difficult to look at people like that as brave. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So
it's certainly different.
It's different. Yeah, it's different. So yeah, to me, it's like, yeah, you can afford to be an arsehole. Whereas if you were a working class journalist and you were just a cunt, they'd go, get rid of that guy. And they go, yeah. Instead of get rid of her. Oh, she's Thingamabob's niece. Oh, well, never mind then. Just let her keep being an arsehole to Goldie. Sorry, I keep saying Goldie. It's just funny to be an arsehole to Goldie because he's so beloved by everybody who's ever met him or interacted with him as
a real
crazed genius.
A real genius, yeah.
An absolute, you know, what's the type of music? Garage?
Jungle.
Jungle music, yeah.
How dare you?
Sorry. I nearly said 2-step, and that's definitely not true. Is it?
What is 2-step?
Can't tell you. It's like 5 different types of dance. It's such a bad name for a genre because there's loads of different dances called the 2-step. Because I think that's like not to get into the etymology of 2-stepping, but I think that is such an old dance phrase that there's been countless dances called the 2-step to then call one thing. But genre labels are extremely unhelpful for most people unless you try to sell music. So
Marina Hyde said an interesting thing about doing press. She went, don't do press because it always will mean more to you than it does to them.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you're like, yeah. You're going to be really upset by that sentence for the rest of your life. And the other person is going to forget they wrote it by fucking lunchtime tomorrow.
Of course, yeah. It's like that Blind Boy thing where he was talking about, I'm not doing interviews with broadsheets anymore because what they do is they'll interview you and they'll take one thing out of context, they'll make that the headline, then they'll put it behind a paywall. So the only thing you said is this thing that you didn't say for 95% of the people who see it.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought it was behind a paywall now. But yeah, it's just so.
You better hope the first paragraph's flattering, Frankie, because that's how people are reading.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Then all the context is, well, who the fuck pays? I accidentally got. I don't want to say this because the Times have been really nice to me twice this week. But I mean, they're evil newspaper. But they recommended my show for the Fringe by the Sea in Berwick. If anybody wants to see a comedy show in a big tent,
That's a cracking gig.
is it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank fuck.
Yeah, no, it's a belter.
I'm doing that. Come see that. Oh, this won't be out in August. I've got the same problem with Shane. His dissertation and
Rush it out. Rush this out. is the
Frank,
next episode.
yeah, Bruce Randy, please rush this for the sake of Shane and the sake of me. Get this out before the Dungeons and Dragons stuff. Sorry. So I'm doing that, and then it was nice in some other sense as well. But it's like, I accidentally signed up for the. I wanted to read an interview with, I think, Jimmy Carr. I wanted to read. The headline was really good. I was like, I want to see what the rest of this is. And then they got me. It was only £1 for the first month. It was like £26 per month after that. And you can't just cancel it. So I just ended the direct debit, but I think that affects your credit rating.
I think no matter how much they try to kind of meet you halfway, like the world of an English broadsheet journalist is so different
Yeah.
from us
Yeah.
that it's very difficult to establish a common place. The very last one I did it with someone else as a two-hander.
Mm.
And it was like a nice guy, but like just a very posh English guy who'd been to public school and, done the sort of kind of freelance life that those people do. And, he's talking to two working class Scottish people. And it was a bit like, you try and have you meet a Dutch comic in a green room and you go, oh, how are you finding it? Oh, and you did Up the Creek, yeah. And you at that slight pitch of, hey, we're friends and blah, blah, blah. But you can't really communicate too easily.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that.
I think I know what you mean. Speaking to a posh person, it's like speaking to a Dutch person.
You might as well be Dutch. Begrudge anyone success because it's all work, man. You still got to do the fucking thing. It's like those people that go fucking Belle and Sebastian. It's just Leonard Cohen and fucking Velvet Underground and fucking so and so and so and so. And you're like, yeah, it is, but you've still got to go and write fucking 300 songs. I mean,
yeah, yeah. But you were probably going to do that anyway.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying about art earlier on. It's like you're just the stuff you've heard vomited back out,
Unless you're really good. Apart from the really
Even
good people.
then, I think they're just hiding it better.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're just hiding it better.
No, there's something to that.
You think, what could Richard Pryor have been copying? I'd say the stand-up records. What was that one that Eddie Murphy... This isn't really the podcast anymore, but what was that thing that Eddie Murphy was in the film for? And it was like the black comedian who had his own records, his own films and stuff. He had blaxploitation stuff.
Beverly Hills Cop.
No, it wasn't Beverly Hills Cop. It was called
probably,
like,
probably it's all
it's just we don't have accents.
There was probably a fucking caveman about, what the fuck is it with these bison? You fucking kidding me?
We use every bit of the bison. I use bison cock. It's a cigar. Are you kidding me? I don't want to use every bit of the bison. Right, cut that, Andy, man. That's just for you.
Don't cut that.
It's
fucking gold.
I don't want to do Black Caveman.
Do you know what's happened there? You've stumbled on something original and you've instinctively rejected it.
Oh, that's fun. That was a fun riff.
That was a fun riff.
But I don't think it's for public consumption.
Well, luckily it's going out on this podcast. Absolutely no cunt will hear it.
You've seen this shit.
Yeah, the story only got out because it had one listener and he was only doing it because he was doing a fucking PhD in Holland. In Holland?
I don't know. In the Netherlands?
Like in Holland?
Yeah. Free Palestine up there. I know my love from Shane in the Netherlands. I'm going to the Netherlands soon, Shane. Let's meet up for Some kind of crepe. What did they eat there? I don't know. Probably not crepes.
I'd love a crepe.
Aye.
Absolutely, well.
You saying this shit? Try to think what else would. I don't like doing the voice, but I think that
You can't do a black voice. And anyway, you did it so inaccurately that it was basically a sort of American Bostonian voice.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
like,
Yeah.
Andy, leave it. It's fine.
Leave out my Protestant. What will I leave out? Leave out my protests.
Leave everything in. The protests, everything. Leave it all in.
You seen this wheel shit? Fire and the wheel. Come on, man. Pick one. You moving stuff or you getting warm? This modern technology.
White caveman be like, oh, I'm putting around my hand.
You know, there's cavemen and there's Neanderthals. And the Neanderthals have got to go.
Oh, do you think... Who's the Neanderthals? Did the Neanderthals have their own stand-up comic? Maybe it was all
they were
like
more prop stuff.
clowning. Yeah.
Yeah. It was the absolute... I can't slag.
Maybe you just went into the Neanderthal camp and it's just a panel show.
They're all set up.
Yeah.
I would love to see the Andy Parsons of the Neanderthal race. He's got such a good rhythm to his stuff.
He's a rhythmic guy.
He's rhythmic. He's like a dance.
One rhythmic son of a bitch. He's like the fucking comedy two-step.
He was so nice when I was opening for him in Dumfries.
He's a lovely guy.
I couldn't believe he was in Dumfries. And neither could Dumfries.
Neither could he, I'd imagine. I had a few words with his agent. I'm in Dumfries.
Yeah. Shout out to Dumfries Theatre Royal. I had one of the best. My tour show. My two best tour shows last year. Inverness. Glasgow was awesome. Dublin. Yeah, that's three. I had a good tour. That was a fun tour. That was fun.
If my hand was longer, I'd slap you in the face. Inverness.
Inverness was awesome. You just haven't played the right room, Frankie. You need to go to a 50-seater nightclub.
There might be 50 decent people in Inverness. There's not 800.
I'm going to do... Oh, I don't know if I should promote this or not. I don't know if I'm...
Promote it up. This is coming out fucking next week. Rushed out.
I'm doing... Okay, it's not. It's just I'm doing Little Wonders putting on an Invernessian gala. So it's like me and like Michael Odewale and some other people up north, and we're all doing like 10-15 minutes each.
That sounds very much like something that might be designed to help the harvest along. I'd be on my toes.
And then in the winter, I'm doing one of those fun kind of line-up shows where it's like David O'Doherty and Sam Campbell or whoever.
All right. In Inverness?
No, it's in Glasgow and Edinburgh, so it's kind of Christmas shows.
All right, cool.
They done it last year with, who was it, like Sarah Pascoe and stuff.
Cool. Where's that at?
Reece James. That's in Glasgow and Edinburgh at like the O2 Academy and the fucking some other place. But they're like some shows that are coming up.
Wow.
And please sign up for my mailing list so you know when my new shows go on sale. Please. I beg of you.
There might come a time when you won't be able to hear about Christopher's dates from this podcast. That time could be coming soon. Sign up for his newsletter.
Yes, please. Anyway, I think it's been a nice day of podcasting, Frankie.
Sure has, yeah.
Guess who has been audibly digesting 3 different curries at once?
Is it Bobby Boa Constrictor?
It is Bobby Boa Constrictor. Thank you, Bobby, for coming on.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks to the elk within him. And to you.
I heard screaming from inside the boa about Thatcher and various other topics. And
it was talking about the Polo Lounge circa 1996. Seemed unusual behaviour for an elk.
But we don't know what's going on out there these days. So, fair enough. Thanks for listening to Here Comes The Guillotine with Christopher Macarthur-Boyd, Frankie Boyle, and Bobby Boa Constrictor.
Fairly well.
Peace and love in the new millennium.